Up that phone. We've found what you're looking for. Welcome to the Let's Talk Cabling Podcast with Chuck Bowser, RCDD. Well, seeing how we're pulling Category 6A, the most powerful twisted pair in the world, you gotta ask yourself this one question. Did I pull 295 or 300 feet? Well, do you feel lucky? Do you, punk? What exactly does RCDD stand for? Registered Communications Distribution Designer. Just the expert you need to ensure your cable plant performs exactly as designed. The elite professional, knowledgeable, and experienced in leading-edge ICT design principles. Now, send the new guy to the truck for a bucket of dial tone and the cable stretchers, while you listen to an informative program on telecommunications.
Thursday night, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That can only mean one thing. Live after hours with your favorite RCDD. You know that's me. Come on, admit it. Your favorite RCDD. Yes. And I'm going to apologize right now if I seem a little less enthusiastic than normal. Chuck is still not feeling good. Yes. My wife got really sick. She's been running a temperature for about 3 or 4 days. We tested her. She's got COVID. And evidently I'm catching it again. So there you go. So if I don't seem like my normal self, that's the reason why. Hate being sick. I just do. So it is what it is. So tonight's show is a little bit different. I normally talk about technical subjects or invite subject matter experts on. Today's subject is going to be a soft skill. A soft skill. I'm talking about leadership. Leadership. But I can hear now, Chuck, I'm not a director. I'm not a VP. You don't have to be an executive to have good leadership qualities. All you can do is just be in charge of somebody. You could be a lead technician with 2 people underneath you and be a good leader or be a bad leader, right? So we're going to talk about leadership today. We're going to talk about what is leadership. Are you born with it? We're going to talk about what's the difference between leadership and management, and then I'm going to dive into the 5 levels of leadership in a book that I recently read. So there we go. Oh, I've got to put on the chat box. There we go. Kalen's in the house, Mr. Kalen. How you doing, my friend? Showtime it is. Showtime it is. So let's get into this, right? Oh, forgot the acronym challenge. Oh gosh, I told you I'm not feeling good. So let me flip over to my design, and I forgot to upload my graphics. I will do this manually. The acronym is SOP. SOP. What does SOP stand for? I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. I'll give you a hint. Has something to do with leadership and management. It's not one of those technical acronyms like I like to do. SOP. What does that mean? Can you tell me in the TikTok feed? Can you tell me in the YouTube feed, the Instagram feed, the LinkedIn feed? What does SOP stand for? Going once, going twice, 3 times a winner. It stands for Standard Operating Procedure. It's something that a written document that says, hey, look, if these conditions happen, here's how you respond to it. Only Fiber's in the house. Hey, Only Fiber, good to see you, my friend. So that's what a SOP is. It's Standard Operating Procedure. Okay, that's the acronym challenge for today. Now, let's talk about, did you catch last week's show? Oh, it was one of my favorite shows. We had 4 contestants from the Bixie Cabling Skills Challenge. And we talked about what's it really like behind the scenes? What do you got to do to be the best? What events do you have to compete in? Do the guys help each other or is it cutthroat? We talked about all of those. And wait till you hear who we had on the show. We had the current reigning 3-time champion, TJ Pate. We had Instagram and TikTok famous Sean Rep. Nathan Lawville of Home Run Cabling, again, social media fame. And Doug Sherwood. Doug Sherwood is a very good close friend of TJ Pate's, and he's also on the RSSC committee, one of those committees at Big. I can never remember the name of that stupid thing. And we talked about all those things, and it's out on social media. So make sure that you go and watch that, because you hear guys talking all the time. I'm the best. I'm the best. I'm sorry, you're not the best unless you beat the best. And that's what we talked about on that show. It's a great show. Great show. Next week's show, we're going to talk about what is an MPTL. MPTL, as seen through the eyes of an engineer of a connectivity manufacturer, right? Not what I think an MPTL is, not what you think an MPTL is. Through the eyes of an engineer, what is it? How is it being used? How do you test it? It's going to be another good show, another good subject. And this particular subject matter expert is a very good friend of mine. So I'm really excited to have him on. So that'll be good. So anyways, like I said, this show is about leadership, right? Leadership. Now I can hear you now, but Chuck, I'm not a director. I'm not a VP. Everybody is a leader of some sort. And you really should start developing those skills now. So this whole show tonight is based on a book. The book is called The 5 Levels of Leadership, Proven Steps to Maximize Your Potential. And that book is written by John Maxwell. Okay. I highly suggest you get that book and you read it. Now, before I get into tonight's show and talking about what is a leader, how is it different from a manager, and the 5 levels of leadership, let me ask you this, and put the answer in the chat box. Can you think of an example in your professional life of somebody who is a great leader? Either you have worked for them or have seen them leading people. Put your answer in the chat box. Have you seen that person? Okay. Have you seen that person? And if you did see that person, what were they like? So let's first cover what is a leader. Got to cover that first. So a leader, what they do is they ignite passion and motivation amongst the people that they are in charge of, right? They possess a clear vision of what they have to get done. They have strategies to be able to get to that point to make it a reality, right? They're also going to prioritize providing their team with all of the necessary support, whether it's uplifting or resources or documents to help them accomplish their objectives. I'm in this industry 41 years. I'm going to tell you right now, we suck at that. We absolutely suck at it, right? And the reason we do is because how many times have you worked for somebody? How many times have you seen somebody in our industry who's afraid to teach their people? Because, oh my God, if I teach them, they're going to take over my job. That's a leader's job, is to educate and train the next leaders of the company, the next leaders of the industry. That's your job as a leader. If you're doing your job right, you will work yourself out of a job. That's what a good leader does. I quite often get asked, Chuck, are leaders born, or are they just a result of education and people that they work with? So over the years, this has been an ongoing debate, like I've had with about a lot of people, about whether an exceptional leader has the inherent traits or if the leadership is something that they can cultivate. So I actually did some research on this, and so recent scientific research indicates that while genetics does place a role, the majority of leadership abilities, roughly about 70%, are acquired through learning and development. You heard me right. So inherently, you only have, about 30% of good leadership skills. There are some basic skills as a leadership that you have to be able to build upon to become a good leader, right? Now, these insights, what do they tell us? They tell us that leadership is predominantly a learned skill. So even if you don't think you're a good leader, you can become a good leader. All you got to do is just, find a way to grow in your effectiveness, either through experience or maybe even through education, right? Now, another thing that I hear quite often is, Chuck, what's the difference between a leader and a manager? Oh my gosh, it's like day and night. It's like summer and winter. It's like Milwaukee Packout versus Klein Mod Box. Totally different. I'll let you decide which one's the better of those last two. Hey, which do you prefer, Milwaukee or Klein? Tell me in the chat box. So how is a leader different from a manager? So when you start talking this whole conversation, trying to figure out what is a leader and what is a manager, it's important to note that the manager is going to focus on overseeing and directing the group towards the predetermined goals. Okay. Now that kind of sounds a little bit like a leader, doesn't it? But leadership revolves around the ability, the capacity of an individual to inspire, to guide them, to empower them so that they will actively contribute to the attainment of those goals that leadership has set out, right? You've got to be able to inspire. Somebody will work a lot harder if they are inspired as opposed to somebody who's just being told what to do. Somebody's being managed. Oh, you got to get 25 jacks done today, right? Right. Jim Parsons in the house. Hey, Jim, good to see you, my friend. I haven't seen you in a long time. So Jim says a great leader is somebody who proactively teaches. I like that. I like that, Jim. I like that, right? So let's go through the 5 levels of leadership. Let's go over to my design screen so I can put up my things here. I really need to talk my wife into doing this for me. I really do. So the first level of leadership. This is the lowest level. This is the two-door econo box 4-cylinder car with plastic hubcaps. This is the basic model. The basic model. And so what that means is the first level of leadership is somebody who follows you just because your position, right? So at this level, leadership is more about having a title or a position than rather than influencing people. I want you to think about this because our industry has this a lot. Think about, and I hope you don't take this the wrong way. Not all project managers are like this, but there are a lot of project managers in our industry who got the job because they have a degree in college. They didn't come up through the ranks. And yet the guys working out in the field don't have respect for that project manager because they haven't come up through the ranks. They only follow that project manager because that project manager has the position. And I got news for you for those types of project managers or even those types of leaders. Even if you have that fancy title, that doesn't guarantee people are going to follow you. They may tell you yes to your face, but then go around and do what they want to do anyway. Or they might try to pull the wool over your eyes. Right? Now, while we're talking about the dangers of relying solely on your job title, it's all about getting people to listen to you. And the best way to get people to listen to you, this is going to blow your mind. The best way to get people to listen to you is to listen to them. You can listen to hear or listen to comprehend. Listen to comprehend. When somebody says something to you, process it. Don't come back with an immediate response. Process it in your brain and then repeat back to the person what you think they just said. That way it's a clear understanding. That way, they know you're listening, and then they're more likely to listen to you because they'll say, hey, you know that project manager Chuck, he actually listens. I used to tell people all the time on job sites, look, even though I'm a project manager and I've got, at the time I had like 25 years of experience, you may come up with a better way to do something. And if you do, come talk to me. Let's discuss it. And if it's a great idea, I might implement it. But we might be doing something this way because that's what the contract says. That's what the scope of work says, right? That's what I'm talking about. You got to be able to listen, and that inspires respect, right? So why would you follow somebody who the only reason they're in charge is because they've got that fancy title? You know how many people I know in this industry that have the title of project manager, yet they don't track material budgets? They don't track labor budgets? Lots. That's what project managers do. They also do scheduling too. A lot of people in our industry get that title of project manager because that's just a way for them to make more money. And all they're really doing is just leading a crew. I'm sorry, that's called a lead tech. That's called a project superintendent. It's not a project manager, right? So If you're following, if you all you're doing is just following orders, it's not because they truly believe in your vision. So the level one, the position is like I said, that is the entry model for leadership. Let's go to the second one. Okay. Oh, I can flip up the chat box because some people posted some stuff in here. Jim said, alrighty, youngsters can misconstrue leadership as dominating others. Being bossy does not condone respect. Respect is reflective. Oh my God, that's so true. If you care a lot, others will want to work underneath you. Excellent. Great job. Perfect description, Jim. Perfect description. Absolutely. Spot on. I agree with that 100%. Right? Spot on. 100%. I got in an argument once with my son long, long time ago, one of my sons. And we were talking about, I just kind of give you some perspective here. My son was like 15 at the time, or maybe even 16. And we were talking about law enforcement officers. And he said to me one day, he goes, well, Dad, I'm not going to give them any respect until they do something to earn that respect. Okay. That's the wrong way to do that. You give people respect until they prove you otherwise. I mean, the mere fact that a person goes through the academy, puts his life online every single day for people he doesn't even know, or she doesn't even know, that right there should give you a little bit of respect. So give cops some respect until they do something to not deserve that respect. Now, go on YouTube. You can watch the videos where there's some great cops, and there's the law enforcement community is like any other community. It's a representative of the people surrounded. So the second level is permission, and here's where things get kind of interesting because it's not about your title anymore. It's about how well you connect with others, right? And Jim was just talking about this, right? We're talking about building trust. We're talking about building rapport. So that way people actually want to follow you. And how do you do that? You're empathetic. You listen. You actually care. People can tell when you say, yeah, I really care, as opposed to when you really do care. People know the difference. And once they know that you care, you are now in the level 2 territory, right? The level 2 territory, because it's all about earning that permission to lead through that genuine relationship. That's one of those skill sets. It took me years to figure it out. And why is building trust so crucial? Because people want to follow people that they have relationships with willingly. It's about being authentic. It's about being empathetic. It's about being a good listener, like I said. It's about having consistency and integrity, doing the right thing, even when nobody is watching. That's a key one, even when nobody's watching. Let's go to the third level. Switch back over to my design. That's in the captions. Level 3, and this is leadership through what you've done, right? What you've done. And what does that mean? That means you've walked the walk. You've talked the talk. You've using our industry as an example, you've pulled cable, you've terminated cable, you've gotten down into those steam tunnels and sweat off like everybody else did. You've earned the respect because of what you've actually done, right? Now, this is not walking the walk, talking talk, although you might do that. It's about, again, you've done it. So people will look at that and they'll say, well, this person has done this, so maybe they've got some experience and they can help us set goals. They can help us be innovative and drive that process for the success of this project or the success of this organization. And why does this production thing matter? It's because it proves that your leadership has chops. You've done it. When I did a project once for a very large communications company, if I told you the name, you'd recognize it immediately, although they're not around anymore. And we were pulling cables in some cable tray in one of their facilities. We just got there. We were on the job, maybe like a couple of days. And these cable trays were up at 22 feet high. So we had some scissor lifts and a lot of the techs were kind of afraid of it. So I immediately get on one of them, go all the way to the top, and I helped them pull cable for half a day. Now, as a project manager, that wasn't my job. My job wasn't to pull cable. My job was to track the project. My job was to meet with the customer, manage the schedule, manage the people. But you know what? When they saw that I did that, they're like, oh, well, Chuck is not one of those kind of people that just says, do it this way because, I'm the project manager. He actually did. And when you do that, what it does is it fosters a culture of excellence. And that's going to be important. Fostering that culture of excellence. All right, let's go up to level number 3. Boom. Let's check the chat box. Nope, nobody has answered anything here in a little bit. Level 3, and again, I apologize. I'm under the weather. Am I on level 3 or level 4? I lost track. That's the production. So we are on level 4. Yes, we're on level 4. Boom. Because 1 was position, 2 was you've walked the walk, and they gave you permission and then walk. So we're on level 4 now, right? Level 4. So what does level 4 leadership look like? Now you're starting to really develop some good leadership skills. Because being a leader is not about you. If you think being a leader is about you, you're not a leader. Okay? You're doing yourself more damage. It's about developing others as well. Yes, you want to develop yourself. But again, I said it earlier, a good leader will be developing, will be training, will be mentoring their future replacements. They invest in their team's growth and their development because they know, a good leader knows that if my people become better, that means we're going to be more successful. That means we're going to meet the budget. We're going to meet, the schedule. We'll get this project done. The customer will be happy, and everybody can celebrate in that success. A good leader would know that. I want you to think about mentorship and coaching and creating some kind of opportunities for advancement, right? I remember I did a project once in Ohio, and I had a guy come out for the job. He came out mid-project, and I had a talk with him, and I realized that even though he'd only had a few years of experience, the guy had a really good head on his shoulders. So I didn't immediately promote him, but I kind of started mentoring him, and eventually he ended up becoming a lead technician and then a project foreman, all because I invested the time. Now, of course, it was on my time, but that's what the level 4 leadership does. They are developing their people. And why would you want to focus on this development? Again, I said it earlier. If your team succeeds, you succeed, right? I got another story for you. One of the people who mentored me, I mentioned him several times. The person who really taught me the difference between a job and a career. We unfortunately had a falling out, but I watched that man. He mentored me, and one day we were talking, and his boss, I found out, was somebody that he used to manage. He used to manage his boss before his boss became his boss. He did such a good job that the person that he mentored, the person that he trained, became his boss. Now, you might be thinking, a person with a shallow personality might be thinking, well, I should have had that position. I was the next one in line. Companies don't think that way. Companies think about results. They think about results. And think about this. If you are the person who trained, who managed your boss, what kind of relationship do you think you're going to have with that person? That person's going to look out for you through thick and thin because they realize they got to their position because you invested in them. That's the best thing to do, right? A good leadership who's in level 4, they want to make sure that they understand that people will thrive under their guidance. And here's a lot of people don't know. That is one of the most rewarding things that you can do as a good leader. Somebody mentioned in the TikTok feed being a good leader as being a mentor. That's part of it. That's not all of it. That's part of it. But as a good leader, you will, when you see the people that you are leading, you are inspiring and mentoring. When you see them succeed and hit their goals and become, RCDDs or become, project managers or area managers, and that you had a small part, because remember, you got to give them credit too. You had a small part in that success. There's some great, great feelings in that. That's one of the best things about being a good leader, right? Now let's move to level 5. This is the pinnacle of leaders. The pinnacle of leaders. Sounds like James. James who? I don't know who you're talking about, Jim. James who? Mm. So let's go to level 5. Boom. There it goes. The pinnacle of leadership. This is the best of the best, right? This is the highest level of leadership that you can attain, right? This is where your character speaks volumes louder than your words ever will. People will know just based on your reputation, based on what you do. We talked about this earlier about integrity, doing the right thing even when nobody's watching. You do that enough times, you will get a good reputation and people will know. And I've seen this happen before. I've seen where somebody would somebody attacked somebody else, and because of that person's reputation within the industry, people came to that person's side and said, "Look, you're wrong here about this guy. This guy's better than that." That's the pinnacle of leadership, right? When you're at that level, and I'm still striving to get that level. I consider myself maybe level 4, maybe high level 3, right? So, when you get to that level 5, it's all about being the kind of leader that other people would admire and respect, right? Nobody goes all the way through their career all on their own. There's somebody who inspired you that you admire, and probably more than one. So don't just take the traits from each of those leaders that you really like and mimic them and then develop ones that you have. When you start talking about authenticity, you really also got to talk about humility and leading by example. I talked about that earlier, how I got on that cable tray, that scissor lift to pull cable on that cable tray 22 feet in the ceiling, even though I was the project manager. I heard another story once, and this is a story from one of the most well-known preachers in the country. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head, but so after service, they were tearing down the chairs and they were all sweeping up, including this well-known, very famous preacher. And they just hired this new assistant pastor, and they told the assistant pastor, "Hey, go grab a broom." And the assistant pastor said, "That's not my job." Here is the senior pastor pushing the broom, telling the junior pastor's telling him that that's not his job. What do you think happened? The guy didn't stick around very long, did he? Did he? There's this concept you hear in the world of churches and stuff. It's called servant leadership. Servant leadership. That's where you put others first, right? An easy way to explain servant leadership that most people can understand is being a dad for me, maybe being a mom for you if you're a mom, because you always put your kids first. Well, the good moms and dads do, right? You will go without eating to make sure that they have food. You will go without, any kind of hobbies or whatever because your kids want to do soccer or cheerleading or whatever, right? You're putting others in front of you. And what happens is people pay attention to not your words, your actions. They pay attention to your actions. You can say one thing and your actions can say totally something else, right? Totally something else. People pay attention to what you do. They hear you too, but they pay more attention to the things that you've actually done, right? All right, we're at 628. So at the beginning of this session, I told you to think of a person, of a great leader that you have worked for or has been in your sphere of influence, right? We talked about that in the very beginning. I want you to think of somebody. I want you to tell me now in the chat box, what level of leader were they? What level of leadership were they? What level of leadership are you? I already told you. I feel like I'm at a 3, maybe a high level 3, maybe scratching on the level 4. Because there's always room to grow as a leader. It truly is. It's being a leader is a journey, not a destination. You don't just all of a sudden arrive. You're always working at your skills. Same thing with being an instructor. Those who know me know I'm an instructor. I don't rest on my laurels. I'm always looking for ways to become a better instructor, whether it's teaching virtually or teaching face to face. Oh, speaking of face to face, I should have put this in the beginning. Podcast meetups. I'm doing a podcast meetup in Raleigh, a podcast meetup in Charlotte, a podcast meetup in Nashville, a podcast meetup in Chicago, all within the next few months. So if you live in one of those areas and you want to come to a podcast meetup, get to meet me, hang out with me for an hour, I might even have stickers. I would love to have you and love to take a picture with you because I love interacting with people with whom I'm making a difference in their life. Right. So I hope you enjoyed this 5 levels of leadership. Let me know. Chicago, are you in Chicago, Only Fiber? I will be there in May and in July. So I'll be like in downtown somewhere. So there you go. So I hope you enjoyed this. And remember, if nothing else, knowledge is power.